Good morning. So glad that everyone is here today. I'm very concerned about this issue. I'm concerned about the impact that the Senate bill will have on the African American community, and that's why we're here. We are imploring and urging the Congressional Black Caucus to stand up and represent the interests of African Americans in their communities. Historically, when you look at African American leaders on this issue, many have understood the impact that bringing in large numbers of newly arrived people to work for lower wages has a devastating consequence on the African American community. You can look at leaders such as Barbara Jordan, who stood up on this issue and chaired the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights that studied this issue for 11 years. And at the end, a bipartisan commission came to the determination that it has devastating consequences on low-wage workers and on the African American community, who are predominantly low-wage workers. You can look at people like W.E.B. Du Bois, who understood this issue, Booker T. Washington, who understood this issue, Coretta Scott King, who understood this issue. I don't know where Wade Henderson has been, but if you look at the black leaders over history, they have all understood this issue and the devastating consequences that it has on the black community.
You need to call your Black Caucus members. You need to send them emails. You need to send them letters. Grab them while they're in the district, if that ever happens. And as a former elected official, I'll explain to you that many elected officials don't read so well. In fact, if you give them a one-page executive summary, some of them will say, can you make this a paragraph? But all elected officials can count. And so you need to be part of that count. You need to tell them in so many words, are you crazy? Amnesty has been opposed by any significant responsible black leader, from Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W.E. Du Bois, A. Philip Randolph, and even Coretta Scott King, because of the devastating impact it will have on wages, on employment, in a community that doesn't need to be devastated with lower wages or lower employment levels. It is a matter of survival for black women. We ran this experiment to see if you can replace black men with the government. How did that work out? You need to call your representatives and let them know how you feel, because this amnesty deal is on a fast track, and if you don't say something, it'll be too late. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Martin. I'm a member of the National Center for Public Policy Research, Project 21. I'm also a business owner and a writer. I will give a definitive flip to what some of my colleagues have been saying. A lot of your illegal immigrants are not Hispanic. They're not picking fruit. They are not poor immigrant workers. Most of them are people who've come to this country on student and worker visas, who've overstayed those visas. The government knows where they are, who they are, but it's much easier. Like I've always said, if you want to spell, another word for laziness is government. They estimate now, this is their estimation, 11 to 12 million illegals. I've worked in the government, I'm ex-military. And I can tell you when the government says 11, they really mean 22, 25, 27. And so we saw this yesterday. Politico pretty much answered our question yesterday. They said this is a bond for Democrats. Both parties fundamentally believe, and they've both forgotten how to govern. All we get is pre-issued speeches and teleprompter speeches, and we're supposed to clap and drool like seals once it's all over with. But in reality, what both parties are looking for is a political edge. You have this quote-unquote bipartisan gang of 8, but not one of them includes anyone from our community. We're saying that this is devastating our community. The young people of today, African unemployment for people between 18 and 24, high school and college grads basically, is 52%. The last 4 years, the African-American community and minorities in general have borne the brunt of these failed policies. African-American unemployment at one point reached, quote-unquote, 17% by government numbers, but we're talking about 25% in reality. That's why we're standing here opposed, Democrats, Republicans. I'm an independent, standing here and opposing this comprehensive immigration reform. We know it will devastate our communities. We remember what happened after the last amnesty, and they told us that'll be the first and last one. Now what? 30 years later, we're back to the same thing because it's easier to get cheaper labor because A, you can pay them under the table. I know this as a business owner. I've seen my fellow businessmen do it. It's easier if they cause problems to get them deported if the government takes that step. But 9 times out of 10, they just move to another state and basically move on. So I would like to conclude my comments with that statement. Thank you very much.
So what do we find? We find foreign workers who have broken our laws and who have benefited from the non-enforcement of our laws. Ask black folks or ask any of us which of our American laws are not enforced for us. We find that non-English speakers, if we're talking less skilled jobs, and we find less educated people coming from countries with less than a grade school education are the preferred workers in the critical immigrant areas where the majority of Americans work, but we're told that Americans won't work, in construction, the services, and in light manufacturing jobs paying up to $15 an hour. This, folks, is gross injustice, and we plead that at least those who are supposed to represent African Americans in the Congress, or any of those fairly, obviously it appears that the agreeing of 8 are not concerned about American workers, and especially African American workers, at least deserve a fair shake in our own country because we do not have the option of any place else to go. Thank you.
So we're calling on the Congressional Black Caucus, President Obama and others do not support amnesty. The last thing we need in our country right now is another amnesty. We need to shut the borders down and keep these illegals out so we can bring black Americans up to standards so that they can earn their way, they can take care of their families and not rely on the government or someone else to do it for them. We do not need another amnesty. We need to, as Booker T. Washington said, we need to think of black Americans, the citizens of this great nation. So close the borders, no more amnesty, consider the black citizens and their lack of opportunities that they have in this great nation. Thank you.
I wrote an open letter to the Congressional Black Caucus. And the reason I did that was because in Washington, D.C., where policy is being set, where we're talking about allowing anywhere from 12 to 20 million people into this country who are taking away jobs, who are taking away opportunities from all Americans, but especially black and poor Americans, something needs to be done. The problems of the black community are the problems of America. They haven't gone away. But I can assure you this, bringing another 10 to 20 million people into this country who don't speak English, who do not want to become Americans, who are sending $30 billion of remittances back to Mexico, because we can track that. That's what we can track. But $128 billion are leaving this country every year out of our economy, and nobody talks about that. But we have a problem with our economy. We do. We're losing $130 billion every year to other countries. So we need to pay attention, and we need to be vigilant. And all I can say is we will be looking at getting these votes away from those who are supporting illegal immigration reform, because that's what it is. Thank you.
But black unemployment is double what it should be, and to bring in massive immigration is an injustice to our country. And I say, as Booker Washington said, cast your buckets where you are, cast your buckets here in America, and hire the labor pool that is here instead of massive immigration. Thank you.
Ours is not just the preservation of black America at the expense of any other group. It is an inclusion of all people. We're in a quagmire, and we have fallen into this cesspool. And it is impossible to think that a drowning man or sucked into this force where he's fighting and grappling for his life to be able to aspire to the mountaintop and stand at the apex. When we see this peril hurled upon us, what's good for black America is good for all of America. We have labored 400 plus years. We've given blood, sweat, and tears. There ought to be some remuneration, not just in terms of dollars and cents as a gift, but an opportunity to express our genius, our ingenuity, and to connect with our legacy, which is there. And you cannot dispute the prophetic doings of Black America in terms of what we did 400 years ago that have led itself to where we are today.